Well, hasn't the first month of the Premier League absolutely flown by? Join me in this video as we look at everything we learned about Ipswich Town in August. Good morning, afternoon or evening, depending on whenever you are watching this. My name is Harvey Bell, an Ipswich Town supporting content creator on the road to 1,000 subscribers. If you do enjoy today's video, please do subscribe and leave a like on the video down below. So we're going to look at all the results, all the games that Ipswich Town have played across the last month. We're going to look at what we learned about the tactical approach, how the new players have bedded in. But as we say, let's begin by looking at where it all started against Liverpool at home on the 17th of August. Now, I think Town gave a very good account of themselves in the first half of that game. I think we could have actually gone into half-time 1-0 up. Very even, I would say. I think we probably have the better of the chances in that first 45 minutes. But then, of course, second half, I think most Town fans would agree that we were quite outplayed by Liverpool. Regardless, I don't really look at that as too negatively, because Liverpool are a team that have been in the Premier League for a long time. They're obviously one of English football's biggest clubs, so losing to them was absolutely no disgrace. And the fact that even when we went 2-0 down, we kept our heads held high and didn't go on to concede 3, 4, 5, I think is a real testament to the team, especially on a day where emotions were high. It'd be very easy for players to lose their heads, and they didn't. I think we all came out of that game feeling quite optimistic, because we did give a good account of ourselves in the first half. We played really well, and we showed that for 45 minutes we could go toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the world. And really the challenge then was to replicate that performance at Manchester City the following week. And for the first sort of 5 minutes or so we did, and we even took the lead. Sammy Schmodix, on his league debut for the club, run through and put us 1-0 up at the reigning champions of the last 4 years. An absolutely crazy moment, really. I don't think many Town fans expected that we'd take the lead, and it all looked like it could all of a sudden be an absolutely fantastic day, despite the odds being stacked against us. 6 minutes later, we found ourselves 3-1 down, and the dream had been crushed. But regardless, it was still a fantastic moment, more than most Town fans expected from the day, and we did go on to lose 4-1. But regardless, again, we showed that we do have moments of quality, and we managed to breach a defence that over the last 4 or 5 years has been incredibly solid. We did learn a lesson. I'm not going to shy away from that. We did, of course, end up losing 4-1, which is not very flattering whichever way you look at it. But Kieran McKenna and his side would have learnt lots of lessons from there that they then took into Fulham. But before that was Wimbledon in the Cup. I'm not going to go over this too much. We know, obviously, losing on penalties to a League Two side in the Cup is not very flattering at all. It's not going to boost confidence, but ultimately on the day, the manager had thrown in lots of new players for their debuts. It was almost an extended pre-season in many ways, with a mishmash of players coming in for their debuts, no chance to integrate yet. I mean, we had Chidozie Ogbene, who had only signed that morning, and he ended up in the starting 11. So I think that's a real sort of testament to what the night was. I think it was just a good chance to throw those players in, get minutes into their legs. And yes, disappointing to be out of the Cup, but in many ways, probably a blessing in disguise to then be able to focus on their league. The only worry I do have is with squad rotation, and obviously these players that played in that game and those that are maybe on the periphery of the squad now getting minutes. There's not going to be a cup game all the way until January, so is that going to be a little bit of a worry? Who knows? But ultimately, out of the Cup, not really bothered, because were we going to win it anyway? Probably not. So at least we can focus on the league now. And that's exactly what we did against Fulham, and I think this was definitely the most promising performance of the lot in August. A 1-1 draw with Fulham at home, a game where we probably could have, should have won it. Liam Delap scoring an absolute rocket of a goal, the first goal at Portman Road this season, the first Premier League goal at Portman Road in 22 years. Absolutely sent a rocket into the top left corner. Brilliant play. Leif Davis had taken on his men just before that. This was a really good goal, and it highlighted for me that actually the gap between Liverpool and Manchester City and those teams right at the top of the Premier League to the teams like Fulham, no disrespect to them, is massive. That's not a knock to Fulham, but it's to say that actually within the Premier League, it does feel like there's more leagues within that, because the gap between teams is so big. I go as far to say, really, that actually, you know, you could look at the top end of the Premier League and say that the gap between the bottom of the Premier League and the Championship is actually lesser than the gap between the top end of the Premiership and maybe when you get down to like your 7th, 8th place teams. It was a real lesson for me, and I think a lot of fans, to realise that actually, as good as Fulham were, and I'm not discrediting them because obviously we didn't beat them and they are a well-established Premier League side who will pick up lots of points this season, they're not your Liverpools and Manchester Cities, and it's not going to be every week that we're coming up against Mohamed Salah and Erling Haaland. That's a real baptism of fire. And yes, we conceded 6 goals in our first 2 games, but ultimately we conceded those goals to Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, Diego Jota and Mohamed Salah, and there's really no disgrace in that at all, because those are players that are going to score against most opponents this season. It is against teams sort of in the bottom half or in the upper mid-table where I think not necessarily we're going to win easily, because that's just not going to happen, but games where we are going to actually be able to implement the way Ipswich play. It's going to be the games where we can really impose our style that we've seen over the last couple of years, getting Leif Davis to that byline, cutting balls back into the box, those neat little passes, Sam Morsey being his absolute best self. It is going to be seen this year. There are games where we are going to be able to show that, and I think we really did start to see that against Fulham. So I was really pleased with the Fulham performance. My only disappointment is, of course, I thought we could have won it. I thought we was going to when Jack Clarke came on, and he obviously bent that shot just around the far post. Amari Hutchinson then nearly scored in the last minute, and yeah, that would have sent Portman Road into ecstasy, really. But ultimately, a good performance, really good to get the ball rolling, get a point on the board ahead of the international break, because it probably wouldn't have been as big of a disaster, but it is nice to go in to the first international break knowing that we're not on 0 points, as a number of teams are. We're not in the relegation zone, we're not bottom, and I think most fans would have taken that after the difficult start we were dealt with the fixture release. So yeah, overall, pretty pleased with the month of August. In terms of what we've learned, I'd say certainly system-wise, it looks like we are going to be playing with a back 5, 3 centre-backs and 2 wing-backs, which I like. It brought us a lot of success in League One. That's the formation that we did get promoted with. I remember the back 3, Cameron Burgess, Luke Wolfenden, George Edmondson and Christian Walton. Whilst in League One, they got us to the most consecutive clean sheets that the club had ever recorded. So it is a very solid system. It's probably not as solid, as I say, when you are playing against your Manchester Cities and Liverpools, because there's not really many ways that you can contain them. But it is going to give us a really good base to build off. Obviously, playing out from the back as we usually do, I did wonder if we'd really switch this up, but it does look like we're still going to be brave in playing out from the back, which, crazy a little bit, yes, but also this is where we've got our success. So can you really blame the manager and the team for trying to play the way? I mean, I think that shows the guts of the team. I think that shows the confidence that they have. Individuals-wise, of course, we've made a lot of signings across the last month. And you look at some of the signings, I mean, I done a video on it the other day that you can go back and watch. It goes into those in a bit more detail. But for me, the standout has to be Liam Delap. I think he's been absolutely terrific in the 3 games that he's played. His hold-up play looks really good. He looks really quick. Obviously, he showed against Fulham that he's got a really good finish on him as well. He was so good in the first half against Liverpool that they had to replace their centre-back, which is a real testament to him and his performance in that game. And then look at the Manchester City game and think that was a game where he didn't really have a lot of service, yet was able to hold up the ball and create with the limited opportunities that he had to do so. So I was impressed with him there. And then Fulham, I know Hutchinson got man of the match, and I could have given it to a number of players, but if I had to choose, it would have gone to Liam Delap, because I thought he was terrific in that. Hutchinson, I think, has grown in to the new season. I thought he was very quiet against Liverpool, better against Manchester City, and then obviously Fulham, he did get the man of the match. And as much as I would have given it to the Delap, you can't argue with giving it to Hutchinson, because I thought he was very good as well. So those two have been the real standout performers for me. And Jacob Greaves at the back as well. Real athletic, real sort of aerial dominance, seems to win his headers, loves a crunching tackle. All the signs that he's going to be a really good centre-back. So largely, those 3 for me have been the 3 that have stood out. So going into the first international break, really pleased with Ipswich, really pleased with what I've seen over the last month or so. So I've got lots of confidence. Brighton away as soon as we come back after the internationals, and I look forward to seeing how we get on there. That's going to be a difficult game, but I'm sure we'll talk about that more over the next couple of weeks. Let me know down in the comments what you have made of Ipswich Town's first month back in the Premier League. Of course, it's been a very big wait to get here, so I'm interested to know your thoughts, your opinions, who stood out for you. And as ever, it's been really good to bring you this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.